Okay, gearheads, now we get to do this wonderful, wonderful water pump on a Subaru. All through the 2000s, what was that, a 2.5? They're all the same. Anyway, the first thing I suggest is get underneath the thing, jack it up. I know it's a biatch, but you want to get that undercover out from under your engine. These things have a cover that covers the entire underneath, and you want to get it off so you can see exactly what you're working with anytime you got a leak going on. Trust me on that one. So, normally I like to deal with shortcuts here, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do to make the job easier on you. I say pull that radiator. It's not that difficult. You take off the upper bracket bolts. There's a few hoses to undo, and then there's just two posts that sit down on receivers underneath there that you just pull the whole thing right on out. It's not that hard. You need that room to work on this thing. Alrighty then, we're going in. We're going to have to get this part over with. So I've got her jacked up. Let's take a look under here. Got the requisite cardboard down on this. It's a very cramped quarters in this trailer that I'm working in. Let's look at what we got. That's the point where I put my jack stands right there. And this is the point here where I use the jack to jack it up. So we got the stands in, got the cardboard down. It's going to be time to start taking this big thing off of here. However many bolts are holding it on, it doesn't look the greatest. Looks pretty tatered around the edges, which I guess one would expect. It looks like there's two bolts right there. It'll have to come out in the middle. There should be one on the side, maybe that's intact over there, at any rate. And we'll get this gnarly thing off of here and see what we have. And there we go. We dropped her down. It's held on by these little gnarly bolts here. The little steps on them, front and rear. And on the sides, these little plastic clips. You got to get pried down with a screwdriver or a tool. So we'll yank this thing out of here and look at what we have up above here. Later, the next job is to get that off of there. So I can imagine it's torqued on pretty good. You can see right here that there's a big old air conditioning condenser. No room in here to get my impact, so I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to get that bolt off of there. This mess down here is what's left of the radiator. Just a matter of pulling those hoses off and working at them. You're going to need to get underneath there to work on this thing. That water pump is tough to get at. It's tucked away down there in the corner. So if you can get underneath, it's going to make it a lot easier on you. Maybe some guys can do it without removing that stuff, but I say go ahead and do it. Whole lot less cursing involved if you do. Now you could take the alternator off and a few things to make the job easier, but you probably don't need to do that. Alright guys, here is what I'm going to attempt. If you can see this, I've got a couple bolts shoved in that balancer. I've got the breaker bar on there, and I'm using whatever's handy for leverage, which happens to be my old torque wrench. So we're going to try to use some reverse leverage on this to see what. So there are a number of ways that are used to remove this harmonic balancer. One of them I've been reminded of is by using the starter. Oh man, so I tried a number of ways to get that harmonic balancer off of there. It ain't easy. And the deal is, if once you ever do get it off, you're going to have to put it back on too. And torque it on. I finally ended up just ordering up the tool for 30 bucks. Just get it from Amazon. And that simplified that situation. Now, this thing is torqued on exceptionally hard. So, let's get ready, Chucky. Oh, my back, oh, no, oh, that might not fit in my back. Oh, my shoulder, oh, jeez, about pulled it out of joint. Here comes the bolt. Well, it's got some heavy-duty marks on it, doesn't it? There it is. Well, that's your harmonic balancer. So there's a whole bunch of bolts holding that timing cover on. You just have to work your way through all of them. You can take the whole thing off in one piece. There's got to be something still holding it on. Gasket down here. Feels like we're talking. There it is. Okay, so the gasket. Interesting. So there's a gasket right there. That's kind of how that is. So there you go. There you have that. Put it back on the same way. So you're gonna have to pull off a gear. I mean, you got a couple choices there. You got the gear next to the water pump, or you got the, or there's the tensioner that you can take off too, which is probably a little easier. All right. So, yeah, so you need to get in there. You need to get all your surfaces cleaned off real good. You got to be able to see what you're doing underneath there. All right, here we have it, Gearheads. The new and the old of it. So, first things first. First thing they gave this away. If you can see this moving, the bearing inside. That okay? See that right there? That's the little weep hole. You can see a lot of corrosion and shit around it. Water comes out of there. It's a warning. Lets you know when your bearing's starting to go bad and water is passing through. Of course, this thing's all buttoned up and covered up inside the engine. You'll never see that peephole, but whatever. So there's a new one. Feels real good. The thermostat. I put it in some almost boiling water and washed it open. 200 degrees or so. So I know it's good. There's the illustrious instrucciones for installation of this water pump. Here's the gaskets. We'll put a thin coat of ultra black on these surfaces and we'll put it in. Get your surfaces cleaned off real good and you can stick that thing back in there and carefully bolt it in and hook everything up. And the trick to getting this belt on was you can see the marks. I found the old marks on it, and that lines up. That lines up. You can barely see the marks, and that lines up there. So so what I do is I get the thing all on there. What I did was I took this one down here off. That way you can get it all in, get it all lined up. Get these all lined up perfectly, and then you turn them both to take all the tension off. So it's tight up here. That gives you as much room down here that you can work with. And so you can get it over that pulley right there. Once you get it over this, you can push up on this. You can push up on this and install that idler pulley. Tighten them all down to 30 foot-pounds. And there's your timing belt. So here's how I went about putting this timing belt back on. I got all the marks lined up. Got everything tight across the top. Give as much slack as I can down here. And there's the gear that I had pulled off. So I had to wrestle that back in place. I did it by use of this thing. And lining it up from beneath here into the hole. And getting the bolts started. So there we are. Okay, give it an extra crank for tightness there. And it's on. God, it was a bitch getting that out of that tensioner in there because of the radiator right here so close. So you got to be real careful. You don't want to screw up your radiator in the process trying to get this little drill bit out of here. Put the cover on last. Fire it up. There you go. It's all good. Slap that cover back on underneath and drop her back down on the ground. And you're done. You're done. And I'm out of here.